We come in, foreigners come in as part of the NGO industry with an ideology that we're here to help and that the process helps. And a lot of us, we're sincere, especially early on, because we have objectives that we all agree on. Helping hungry children, curing disease, lowering infant mortality rates as high as 15%. So this is what wins everybody over, and this is what makes people believe, well, how could it be wrong? How could it be bad? Yeah, there's more evil people in the pipeline, businessmen. You call them evil or not, their job is to make money, so they do everything they can to make money. And a lot of those people understand very well the impact of what they're doing, but it's not important. That's not what they're focused on. Everybody's trying to do their job as best they can, and those guys, I'm sure they have their own logic. The process of the aid, because it really is adapted to getting the money from the donors, because that's your criteria for success. Did I win the project? After that, there's so little follow-up. And even if the project miserably failed, even in cases where the money completely disappeared, there's very, very rarely any penalty. Failure is often the criteria for getting more money rather than the criteria for the project being cut. The NGOs are selling a service. A lot of people criticize they're not doing what they said. They're not selling it, but they're selling a service. They're selling it to the people who pay for it. And that service is to feel good. People pay for the money, they see these horrible problems, they give them the money, and then they think the problem is taken care of, and the NGO tells them it is. It's being taken care of, and they feel good. There's your service. You got an earthquake, a huge, massive humanitarian crisis, people trapped in the rubble, people screaming, people's children and family. It's nightmare. It's that, Armageddon sort of image that we all fear, the city destroyed. Nobody's fault. There's nobody to fight, nobody to last. All there is to help. Well, what do you do? What do you do? How do you figure out where the people are? Well, there's only one solution, man. You ask the locals. Instead of asking locals, we're walking around these sites with these dogs. Most rescue crews got here after what they call the golden 48 hours. It's when you most likely find anybody alive. And 2 weeks overseas television extravaganza of Haitians being pulled out of the rubble, covered in dust, blinking, one would have the impression that they were really doing a lot of saving. It was clear that the government had overestimated the death count. Well, after the first or second week, the numbers are 150. The two, I think, after a month they were. I think it was about 3 weeks. They had them up to 200,000. So the interesting thing is that the NGOs and the international organizations they all went quiet about the issue. Nobody challenged the government. Even the press went quiet about the issue. Meantime, the numbers are going up, and the journalists and all the NGOs are repeating the government figures, which were 220 and then went up to 300. A year after the earthquake, they upped them to 316,000. Clearly, they all have specialists in getting donations. They all have specialists in explaining their work and the problem. And even the journalists, the first thing you want to do in those endeavors, in impressing or getting readership or getting money from donors, is to make the problem as extreme as possible. I had one of the highest ranking UN officials in the country tell me personally to my face that publishing those numbers, writing those numbers is one of the meanest things a person could do. Wait a minute. Publishing the truth is one of the meanest things you could do? Well, what are we trying to hide? We're trying to hide, what's this all about, Is it okay? I mean, that's a good question. Is it okay to knowingly accept figures and republish figures that are 10 times what you know are the real figures? Is that okay? In the name of, okay, maybe it is. Maybe it is. But it's only okay if the money that you get to do it, you spend on helping the people you say you're going to help. Now, there's where things start to break down. And U.S. occupation, a lot of people think of it as some benevolent attempt to pick Haiti up because the Germans were going to come in, or because things were such a mess. When you look at what happened, there were some good things, but what happened is U.S. corporations moved in. They took over something like 50% of all arable land in Haiti. They took over the direction of the economy. They were making all decisions for 20 years. The same things happened over and over in different forms. This is the battleground, one of the primary battlegrounds on earth between Satan and God. And the zombies fit very well into that. The most religious and superstitious people in this country are the missionaries. They're just as religious and superstitious as the people who we think are anachronisms for believing in law and sorcery. The missionaries believe in it. A lot of these are educated people from the United States. They believe in it. They're here to combat it. They believe it's satanic. It was a colony with a lot of slaves. It was a high density, high number when they got their independence early on, and the plantations were divided up. And that's a process that continues to this day. There's fragmentation of the land into small holdings and the peasant agriculture. In the Dominican Republic and in Cuba and in Puerto Rico, where you had less population, more land, and you also didn't have the same independence movements early on, you had the survival of huge tracts of land.